Hello everyone, welcome to another lesson to discourse analysis. This is lesson number 9. We're going to continue talking about approach to discourse analysis. Today we're going to talk about conversational analysis as an approach to discourse analysis. Conversational analysis, CA, introduced by Harold Garfield in 60s and 70s. Conversation analysis is an analytic approach that emerged and grew out of the ethnomethodology. So in the previous lesson, we talked about the ethnomethodology. Conversation analysis emerged from that approach. So CA's conversation analysis is conversation analysis focus on investigating language and social interaction distinguishes it from ethnomethodology general examination of how people understand their social world. So we have seen in ethnomethodology, its view is about how people understand and make sense of the real world. But conversation analysis is about social interaction and language. So conversation analysis is the systematic analysis of the talk produced in everyday situations of the human interaction. Talk in interaction. This is definition by Hatchby and Woofit in 1999. Conversation analysis is the study of recorded, naturally occurring talking interaction. Principally, it is to discover how participants understand and respond to one another in their turns at talk, with the central focus being on how sequences of actions are generated. So conversation analysis looks at ordinary everyday spoken discourse, that is naturally occurring discourse or speech, and it aims to understand from a fine-grained analysis of the conversation how people manage their interaction, how people interact in their naturally occurring speech or conversation. So conversation analysis also looks at how social interaction are developed through the use of spoken discourse. How do we as human beings in our societies develop social interaction through the use of spoken discourse, through speech? Conversation analysis is an approach to the analysis of authentic recorded spoken discourse, which examines how spoken discourse is organized, how conversations develop as people carry out everyday interaction, sequence and structure. So it describes the conversation analyzes all these things. It analyzes how spoken discourse is organized, how conversation develop, and the sequence and structure of discourse. That is opening and closing. How do you open a conversation? How do you close a conversation? How do you take turn? Do you take turn or not? Okay. And adjacency pairs. Adjacency pairs, they are utterances produced by two speakers in a way that the second utterance is identified as related to the first one and expected to follow up to it. So adjacency pairs is basically the conversation that you carry out with someone. So you ask and they respond, and then so the conversation is like an answer. It's like one is related to the other, okay? And then you keep going in the same topic and always building up new utterances that are related to the previous ones. So conversation analysis holds the view that Ordinary conversations are the most basic form of communicating and establishing social relations. Ordinary conversation are the most basic form of communicating and establishing social uh, relations. So when we talk about opening and closing, conversations do not simply begin and end. The opening and closing of conversation are organized. This is the focus of conversational analysis. For example, in the opening conversation, speakers use adjacency pairs to open a conversation, such as greeting, for example. Okay, such as, sorry, such as greeting. So examples, what's up? Not much. What's up with you? So here, as you can see, the first topic is held back until the conversation develops from uh, opening to a point where it can be introduced. And then A goes and says, I am fine, I'm just upset because of this new manager at the office. I'm sorry, this one also has to be here. So as you can see, the first person says, what's up? The next person is reluctant. So he's not really uh, following the conversation, not responding, just saying not much, what's up with you? And then A starts saying, I am fine, I'm just upset because of this new manager at the office. So we didn't start just, you don't just come to someone and say, I'm just upset because this and this. So we have to start the conversation first, use the adjacency pairs, and then later, step by step, you start engaging more in the conversation. And then when we talk about closing conversations, for example, we have standard closing. For example, okay, when you finish the conversation, you just say, okay, all right, okay, with the following intonation, showing that, okay, the conversation is over. And we have two turn units closing, like say bye bye, bye bye between the speakers. So this is another closing conversation. And then we have pre-closing sequences. This one is like in the example here between the person A and person B. It's very demanding. Yeah, well, things always work out for the best. Oh, certainly. All right. Okay, goodbye. Okay, so we have a sequence. You close the conversation in a sequence, in sequences. And then another notion that is very important in conversation analysis is turn taking. The basic rule in English conversation is that one person speaks at a time, after which they may nominate another person, or another speaker may take up the turn without being nominated. This is the definition of turn taking. Did you hear the news, Abraham, for example? The person B, she got engaged to a doctor. Yes, her sister is my best friend. So you take turn. You say something, you wait, or you finish, the other person takes turn and starts another topic. They talk about it for a minute or two, and then the other person. So turn taking is very important role in conversation. Components of turn taking. The basic rule in English conversation is that one person speaks. Okay, this is the definition that I have just used earlier. Okay. Turn construction units. So we're going to see the components of turn taking. Turns at talk can be seen as constructed out of units, which broadly corresponds to linguistic categories such as sentences, clauses, single words, etc. So we have turn construction units, that is, hey, what? Or use a phrase, okay? So these are turn construction units. In turn construction units, this one has some features of turn construction units. These features are projectability. It is possible for participants to project in the course of a turn construction unit what sort of unit is it and what point is it likely to end. So this is one feature. The other feature is transition, relevance, place. At the end of each unit of these that we have, like hey and what, etc., at the end of each of them, there is the possibility for legitimate transition between speakers. That is, one person can just start the topic, take turn and start the topic. Transition between speakers. So there is possibility for the legitimate transition between speakers. Now, we're going to see turn distribution. This is another component. The first component is turn construction unit, which has these two features, A and B. And the second component is turn distribution. That is, who dominates the conversation in terms of number of turn taken, length of turns, etc. There is no exclusion of parties. The number of parties can change. Turn taking rules. If C, that is a person, selects another person in current turn, then C must stop speaking and N must speak next. So this is the rule of taking turn in conversation. If you ask someone to say something, then you should immediately stop talking, giving the floor for the other person to say something. You cannot ask someone to talk and then you keep talking. B, if C does not select N, then any other party self-selects. So if there are, for example, three people, one is talking, and then any other person can start talk first. There is no if no one is selected or expected to talk, then anyone can say anything. First speaker gaining rights to the next turn. So the one who starts first, that's the one who has the right to talk. If C has not selected N and no other party self-select, then C may or may not continue. So if there are three people, C, N, and D, for example, and no one selects the other, and no one select themselves to talk, then the first person who started the conversation might continue talking or stop. Other notions in conversation analysis are what is called overlap. So overlap is when two voices are going on at the same time. So overlap, we have two people talking at the same time. One talks and then one goes, and then one stops and then the other goes. The overlap, their conversations overlap. So instances of slight over anticipation by the next speaker. Over anticipation does not necessarily force the first speaker to finish his or her turn. So when this overlap happens, there is a slight over anticipation in which one person does not force the other person to finish, or so there is no, you just say whatever you want and then the other person finishes your sentences sometimes, or you finish theirs. So interruption is also another important notion. Violation of turn-taking rules of conversations. Interruption is a violation. When you interrupt someone, you violate their turn-taking rule. The next speaker begins to speak while the current speaker is still speaking. At a point in the current speaker's turn, which could not be defined as the last word. This is a definition to interruption by quotes 2003. So we have overlapping, we have interruption, and then we have repairs. So we have another definition by the same author. Interruption break the symmetry of the conversational model. The interruption prevents the first speaker from finishing his or her turn at the same time gaining a turn for oneself. So this is basically another definition for interruption. It just says that when you interrupt, you prevent other people from finishing their conversation, and then you gain the right, you gain yourself a turn. Okay, you gain yourself the right to say something. And it's of course a violation. Repairs is a term used in conversation analysis to cover a wide range of phenomena, from seeming errors in turn-taking, such as overlapping talk, to any of the forms of what is commonly called corrections. That is, substantive faults in the content of what someone has said. So repairs is just like trying to repair a violation of turn-taking, overlapping talk, etc. These are errors. So seeming errors in turn-taking. So the errors, overlapping talk is an error in conversation, in speech. Turn-taking, if it's violated, like in interruptions, then this is an error. So this is what repairs tries, this notion tries to cover. Thank you very much. This is it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video and good luck.